creating values through light. And I think we can add in a word, which is together, creating values through light together, because lighting does not exist by itself. It exists within an architecture, it exists with people. So I just wanted to add that word because I think it has a much wider meaning. I'm not sure what you call it, but I want to touch on two subjects. My first introduction will be on a project that was quite near to my heart, which was a renovation project, a hospitality project in Western Australia, which was located right near a turtle breeding beach, which had very stringent requirements in terms of lighting. And I wanted to share with you the thought process and how we went through that. And in the second part, and I think Mr. Tom mentioned that, I want to touch upon AI, which is today on everybody's mind. What is AI doing for us? And I understand there's architects in here, interior designers, and some lighting designers. It's a broad approach which basically applies to designers in general, not only lighting designers. So even you as architects and interior designers that are here, you will find some resonance in what I'm going to talk about when we talk about AI. Can we put that over here? Because I'm trying to watch the laptop and not put back. Right. So that's the project. It's called the Headland Hotel. It's located in Port Hedland, about 2,000 kilometers north of Perth in Western Australia, which is where I live nowadays since COVID. Yeah, sure. So I reside in Western Australia nowadays, and it's an interesting country. I like it. It's also a place where I'm sort of retired. You can see at the bottom here, it says multi-lighting on the left, Klaasen lighting in the middle, and LDC on the right. And there's a reason for that, because I used to be the owner of Klaasen Lighting Design, but I sold that to Multi 1.5 years ago. And as of next week, I will officially be exiting Multi and become a truly retired lighting designer. Which doesn't mean I'll be retired, but I will just not be part of a real commercial practice. I will do freelance work and a lot of education. And that education will be through what I call the virtual light design community, a community that I co-founded during the pandemic, where people can join and communicate with the wider lighting community. I will have a QR code that you can scan. There is no cost involved to join. We have more than 800 members worldwide, and it's a sort of a social media kind of website where you can communicate and talk about the issues related to lighting. So, without further ado, let's start with this. So this turtle beach, I don't know if any of you have ever been to a turtle beach, but I have never. And one of the things that also plays an important role when we talk about being a designer is also to have site experience, to have field experience. So I cannot design without having been to site. When they told me about turtles and turtle breeding, I wanted to understand what exactly is it. So I went there, and I was lucky to be there exactly when there was a turtle breeding season. And this is the beach. And there are flatback turtles, and these turtles are quite big. It doesn't change. Yeah, I can look back for now. And I was very fortunate to be there one night, because turtles go from the sea to the beach at night time when the tide is high. And I have a video, which I can play now, just to give you a bit of an idea what that feeling is of being there. So you see a turtle coming there. It's maybe a bit dark, but here. And these are So I was sitting there, and I said, oh, it's coming right home to me. It was quite scary. Because there's like 1.5 meters long. Why? So you can see it comes right to me. And you will see a bit further, it will have its face literally like 20 centimeters from my face. And I was with my mobile phone, like filming. So now it looks like me, like I'm a robot. Oh. But then it just gives you that feeling, like that's what they do. They go very slowly, step by step. They explore around them, and they then think that I was a robot, obviously, because I'm quite big, and I also wasn't moving. So, can I go to the right? Sorry.
I'm currently now at where normal people come and visit the turtle breeding season. This is a platform.
Pause for a second. Just pause it for a second. I just want to explain what I'm doing here. You know, the famous Attenborough who always goes and explore nature and things like that. So I did a bit like him. And I went to his beachside to get an idea of what turtles actually experience. And that's what this short video is about. I tried to position myself in being a turtle. Yes.
The beach is where turtles go out of the sea and go and find a nesting place. In the back where you see the water tower, that's just on the right of it, is where the hotel is. I'm going to go and walk on the beach to get a bit of a feeling how much of the building you can see. Of course the turtles are low to the ground, but if you see the white umbrellas on the right side of the building, we'll have some light in it. So I really want to make sure that I understand what part of the building can be seen. It's probably only the top. But sometimes the turtles go also in the green part of the sort of small little dunes to do their nesting, but most of the time they're actually on the beach. I'm going to walk down now and then have a bit of a look. It's of course nice to design on the property itself, but I need to get a good feeling of what it is if you're on the beach and how much you can see. So on the beach, to get that feeling, obviously, the nesting the turtle breeding only happens at high tide. So it's pretty low tide now, as you can see, but you can see the high tide line, so there's only a small stretch. I'm currently down at.
I was trying to find the point of that.
So this would be a typical location where the turtles would create a little testing ground. I'm on my knees, basically at the level of the turtle. We can still see the top of the umbrellas. This is me looking, trying to get into the same angle as the turtles. They're low to the ground about. They're quite big, so they're probably 1/2 meter long. Yeah, this is what they would see. You can still see a little hole here, so this is where one of those nesting locations will be, and you can still see the top of the building, top of the umbrellas. So it's really important to control the light output and the direction of the light towards the beach. And then if you turn around, that's the way back that they would have towards the sea. Now it's low tide, so that would be just over the edge of the sand here. That's where the water will be. So it's maybe about 20 meters or something that they have to go. Sometimes they go beyond this red, this little June edge, and they go and find a place just in the back of here to do their nesting. But anyhow, it's very close to the hotel, so it will be very important to manage the lighting and also the color of the light that's visible from here.
So that gives you a bit of an impression. If you would have tried to understand that from just looking at some YouTube videos maybe or from your behind your desk, I really wanted to experience that for myself. And even though this is for turtles, I generally do it for every project that I undertake, is to go to site and get a real feeling of what's going on and what's relevant. Now, the other thing what's relevant is that because it's a natural habitat, the Western Australian Biodiversity Department has specific guidelines. There are national lighting pollution guidelines for wildlife, and there is also the artificial lighting impact assessment report, which I needed to follow in terms of doing my design. So if you go in there, you will find specifically here on the right, you will find where the sensitivity of the turtles are. And you can see that it's specifically here in the blue part of light where they're very sensitive. And they're far less sensitive to the red part of lighting. So even though there's a little dot in the orange, it's quite weak. It's specifically in the blue zone that turtles are very sensitive, they have their higher sensitivity. So that's one part that directed me in terms of my lighting design. The other thing is the viewing angles from turtles. We have a very wide viewing angle, but turtles have quite a restricted viewing angle, which is only about 30 degrees off the ground and about 180 degrees from left to right. So it was another important thing to understand, and that's why I went on my knees to get a bit of an idea of what it is they could see. Then they also describe what you were supposed to follow in terms of the design process. So you have to describe how the environment is, you have to understand which part of the wildlife has an impact, and then you also have to do a risk assessment of your own lighting, and then that has to be put into a report that is being given to the council and biodiversity department to get approval. And this approval was important for the client to be able to complete the renovation of the hotel. So these are just some parts of the report that I put together, and I'm just going to enlarge this part here, in which I'm trying to explain the key issues that I was attacking. First of all, the aiming angle from the turtle towards the hotel. So I needed to be very clear on what sort of angles these were. And also the location of the light in terms of where it is positioned and what the direction is, so you can see it's aimed away. Any light on trees was also away and protected by the trees, so the reflection would be lent inwards and not towards the ceiling. So that's an approach that was important. The other thing that was important is to detail each and every light fitting. As you can see, all the colors were amber, and amber in this case was about 2200 Kelvin. And an assessment in terms of risk management. So how much risk would these lighting points? So each of those were assessed, and then we had to describe what sort of optics we were using and what the risk component was of that specific lighting point. Quite extensive, but it was necessary to get the approval. We went to a few rounds where we submitted the report, they asked some fine-tuning questions, and in the end, they gave the approval to go ahead with the renovation of that hotel. This is how it looks like now, today, and that amber color is really interesting because it sort of gave the property an identity, so much so that the other properties that I'm doing currently with them, which don't have necessarily a turtle beach in front of the hotel, are also likely to use amber on all the exteriors. In general, amber is a good color for exteriors and towards wildlife. But it gives the hotel also a corporate identity. And people find it really nice, very pleasant. As you can see here, for instance, the downlights that we use are very high cut-off. If you're on the beach, you won't see anything. Light goes directly on the tables. Light inside the umbrellas are also aimed inside the umbrella. So even though there's a little glow in the umbrella, it provides a very nice and cozy ambience. And you can see from the colors, it's a very pleasant environment, specifically because I don't know if you've ever been to Australia, but there's a lot of very nice sunsets. And the sunset color happens to really match very nicely with the color of the light. So this is the car park behind and on the side of the hotel. Also here, very sharp cut off, 45-degree angle on the bollards. Whatever light, so for instance here, the sea is on this side. So the light is facing on this side here, so the reflection goes towards the car park and not towards the sea. But it doesn't mean we have to forget about creating some nice lighting effects, like here, just a positioning spot that provides some nice shadow on the wall, which is on the back side there. And it provides a nice pathway. You can see everything is focused on the center. It provides good guidance, good visual guidance for people that visit the hotel. But whilst you're on the beach, you can hardly see anything. This is the pathway. Now, this pathway is a public pathway on the front. And this pathway, generally speaking, had those street lights. I don't know if you can see the street lights there. And we applied for the street lights to be removed because that's still public part of the council. And so that we could have the lights the way I have installed here, low to the ground. And this is another way. So this pathway is public bike walk path with the beach on the right and the hotel on the left. And the street lights are the anomaly because they should be there, right? But that dates back from a long time ago, so we're still in the process of trying to get these removed, which will happen because they approved the installation of the low polar lighting. And this is a little drone video, if you can, yeah. Just to give you a bit of an idea. As you can see, I haven't manipulated this picture. It's a drone shot, and you can see the color of the sunset and the color of the light. It's like when I saw it afterwards, was really nice. Yeah. So that project won multiple awards. One of them IS award in terms of really dealing with the environment. And that's the story about this Headland project. If you have any questions, keep that for you now. We can deal with that later on after I've done AI, and we'll have a whole session in which you can ask questions. Now, I also wanted to talk to you about the virtual light design community very briefly. You can go to the website, vld.community, and you will see that there's many people that post articles, their interviews, their podcasts, their presentations, their panel discussions, we have events. So it's a platform where people can communicate and can exchange ideas. It's a platform for knowledge sharing, which is one of the key elements. There is no cost to it. It's a free membership. And we have reached already more than 800 members, as I said, globally. And we aim this year to reach 1,000 members globally. And when I say globally, I mean from South America to Australia, and from Norway to South Africa. It's like from all over the world. And it gives you also a platform, a resource platform where you can find stories, research papers, promotions about lighting and latest lighting innovation. So I would encourage you to become a member and support the community, because it's not only lighting designers, even though it's called the lighting design community, it is actually a lighting community in general, because we, as I said before, the creating values together, which means we need the architects, we need the interior designers, we need the manufacturers. It's one big community that makes lighting happen. Good. From here, I would like to start my second part. Do I need to switch it here? If I want to go to AI? Because I've created a second story. Because I think it's important to balance, on one hand, what are trends in terms of lighting application values, things like dark sky environment or taking care of our natural habitat. People sometimes talk about human-centric lighting, but we should technically think about life-centric lighting, because it's not only us inhabiting the planet, we have a whole animal kingdom as well. Now, this story here, is it possible to get it here or not? This second story is also very relevant. While applying values in lighting design is important, understanding where we're going in the future is even more important. And I'm sure, may I just, with a raise of hands, understand if anybody has already dabbled into AI in some way or form? Anybody using ChatGPT or things like that? Yeah, sure, somebody. But what we don't realize is that this is coming our way in a very, very fast manner. Just to give you a bit of a background how I got into AI, because you think, why would I get into AI? I'm about to retire, but why would I bother with it? But I started my career in 1979, which is 47 years ago. And at that time, we didn't even have computers. So I've seen the involvement, the evolution of the technology from incandescent lamps, power lamps, compact fluorescent lamps into LEDs as we know it today. I saw the arrival of the computers. In my older days, we had a big mainframe, which means that you had to spend the afternoon punching cards, put them into a machine, get the computer to read it overnight, and then hopefully the computer calculations will be okay the next morning. Now we can do it on our mobile phone, for argument's sake. So about 1.5 years ago, I was in India and I met an architect, Tandir. And Sahil had been working on AI already for 2 or 3 years. And I was introduced to him and he explained to me what AI could do for designers. And I subscribed straight away to one of his workshops. And after that supposedly 3-hour workshop, which lasted nearly 5 hours in the end, I was blown away by what AI could do. And I said to him, listen, we need to put something together to explain what AI can do for light designers, because it's moving so fast. And when I started 1.5 years ago, as the human in the loop, with the one with lighting design experience, because I said, I have lighting design experience, you have the AI experience. So together, we should be able to balance what you know is good for using AI, and I know from my experience what real lighting design is about, so we can sort of confront each other. And that's how this course started. So when we did this, we thought it was important to highlight also the importance of us as humans, because we're all worried that AI is going to take away our job as designer, and I'm just talking about designer in a general way, lighting designer, architect, interior designer, and potentially also create a total different shift in the way we are going to start doing lighting design or architectural design in general. So the question then comes up is, will lighting designers or architects or interior designers be replaced by AI? That's what I have explored, and at the end of this presentation I will give you my verdict. Okay, so I have to do this. Yeah. So this is an extract of one of the course modules, but it sort of amplifies and explains what I think is happening. Because what is happening is that we are moving from static imagery, which you might call a render or a CAD plan, to something which is dynamic, something that is moving. It's no longer a still image. We're going to move to things that are more fluid, that are going to create that are going to create movement and experiences over time. And I want to lead you through a number of things that AI is starting off already doing. And some of you might have already experienced it in your practice, some of you might have heard about it, and some of you might be wondering about it. But I think, from my perspective, the way I look at it, it's here, and it's actually way further than we think it is. So this thing here is that we are moving now from creating static plans, creating static renders, to something that's more of a visual experience when we try to convey our designs to our client. Which means that we are moving from being a drafter of plans, just a producer, to a sort of a director, a cinematographic director, somebody who composes and creates a movie, an experience. And for that, we use AI tools. So it's no longer just linear or static. It becomes the kinetic, time-based experience that has an actual story. Now, we used to do conceptual presentations, and yes, there is a story. But now with AI, it changes dramatically because we have so many more options to our disposal. For instance, in this case study that Sahil and I did together, we are looking at how to convey the experience over time, even if it's half an hour from daytime to nighttime, and also expressing the humidity in the air, or what sort of temperature could be there, and how is the lighting captured over time when you go from daytime to nighttime. So there's obviously a number of stages, and that is where AI is helping a lot, because you can create all these steps and convey that experience. It's no longer just one static image. It becomes a sort of a movie, a short movie about what it is when the sun is about to set, all the way till when you feel the warmth of the light when the sun is already gone. That's a process, it's a sequence in which AI now can help enormously to convey that message. So these short examples here, just quick architectural images. These were created by Sahil with some of the AI tools, just to create short little movements in terms of videographic and time-based lapses of sunrise, sunset, and how we experience the change from day to nighttime. These can be just very quick steps. Doesn't need to be long, but you gradually get the feeling on how things change from day to nighttime. And as lighting designers, obviously, we have to deal with daytime, we have to deal with nighttime, and we have to specifically deal with the transition from day to night. Now, there's actually a problem, because with that now we are arriving at a situation where AI can create so many things for us that I call it here the tapestry of noise, but it can create so many options for you that you might have a conflict of what is it that I actually need to present. How can I narrow down what it is that I want to convey? As it says here, I can create 50 different variations on the same theme. Do I need to send all this one and present all this one to the client? No, I don't have to. I need to narrow it down. So there is a danger with AI of overload, very big danger. And some of you might have already been playing with AI tools. You just hit the button, you prompt things and you get an overload of things. So now that's where the human comes in. How do we narrow that down? When we do that, we have to realize that we are not selling lux levels to clients. We're trying to create experiences. We are creating mood and ambience, and that's what we're trying to sell. So when we create that presentation, we are also building a trust level between you and the client, because they will look at you in the hope and in the expectation that you can deliver on what you're presenting. We can present a lot of things, but it has to be doable. It has to be presentable, which means that we need to filter all that digital noise into something that has a strategic value in terms of a storyline. So all those 50 different options that may have been created need to be filtered down to something that makes sense, and then you can create a journey that guides your client to how you will go to the various steps in terms of design creation. I think this is a very important step, but some of you may also have come across what we call hallucinations, and specifically the older models. Today it's a bit less. AI is improving rapidly, but we have to be understanding that AI is not always right. It may create things that are actually not possible. It may look beautiful, but there is this, what I call, gap between what looks beautiful and what's actually feasible. And the risk that we're seeing that is coming in the future is that experienced people like me will see that. I can see from this image that's not possible. But will the new generation be able to see that with little less experience? And I think that's one of the things that we need to be very mindful when we start developing AI tools to support us in the whole design workflow process. So there's a big risk with AI, and that's where the human in the loop with experience comes in. So as I said, it may have looked good on the slide, but then you realize that you can't build it. But I have to say, in the 1.5 years that I've been working on this course, which is already online, you can follow it, but there have been so many developments, and the quality of the tools have evolved so much that the risk of it not being possible is getting less and less, and we have more and more understanding of what's possible and what's not. And I think that's a real important thing to understand. We as oversight human beings need to be able to understand what the design intent is that we want to create and what is actually possible in reality. Now, for that, you get also an evolution in the slide deck that you present to your clients. where we originally started with blueprints. I don't know if any of you ever had to go to a print shop with calcs and had it printed as blueprints, but I had to do that in my early days. We didn't have computers, laptops, and things like that. I had to actually go with transparent drawings to a print shop and print blueprints. But we've gone from all there to today, where we can create this cinematic narrative, which I think is really representative of what AI will be able to support you with. It becomes fluid, it becomes emotional, and it becomes very persuasive in terms of what it is you're trying to present. But now, that's where the point of us humans comes in. Because we are still curators. We are still the person in charge. You can have slides built, but in the end, you need to control the storyline. You need to make sure that you're on top of what actually the message is. You cannot just cut and paste what AI is giving to you. And that's something that we see happening quite often. And in order to be able to have that oversight, and in order to be able to provide something that's realistically possible, you need human experience. And as I mentioned before, I have that experience because I've been to site, like the turtles. I've been to many countries on site to experience the local culture and what happens. But the new generation might not have that experience, so how do they have the oversight? What is important is that we can feel emotions, we build experience, and most of all, we also have something called intuition. Now, intuition is built through experience. I can come into a room and immediately see what's right and what's wrong, built on my experience. But intuitively, I also know what needs to be done to improve it because of my experience. Now, in the future, who will have that sort of experience, that field experience? Actually, so there's a lot of people, specifically the older generation designers, and I'm not talking about lighting designers only, but I'm also talking about architects and interior designers, who are quite apprehensive about all these AI tools. Because where comes the learning part for the new generation in terms of learning the actual skills, appreciating things, understanding what the emotional feeling is? How do you build that experience? How do you build the intuition about what's right and what's wrong? Something I know I have, but something I'm worried for the future. So, as it says here, it's not so much about learning which button you need to push. It's about how you guide attention to what is important. Because we have now so much to choose from that we need to narrow it down and make sure that we stay to the point and remain human in its context. So, I just want to go through a number of points in summary of how AI, in my opinion, will affect our future. First of all, as I mentioned before, there will be a shift from being a producer to being a director, a creator. I think that's an important thing to understand, is that we are moving from static to dynamic. We're going to become a movie director, if you want. Secondly, we also are going to move from creating static imagery to multiple imagery that have a sort of a sequence over time. I think that's also an important change in how it will impact not only online designers today, but I think for architecture, the same thing. You're moving into a new era of creation, iteration, and presentation. Curation becomes therefore a key element in how we're going to work and how we're going to be influenced by AI. We're going to shift from the production element, which we can farm off to the AI, to becoming the producer of high-level curated content. The emotional intent is also an important part. I mentioned before, as humans, we have emotions, we have feelings, we have intuition. That part is going to be important as an oversight characteristic, or we call it the human in the loop when you're using AI tools. Because that part is going to become really important in terms of creating context, creating content, and creating the ability to design for the future. Now, we have a workflow. I mean, whether it's a lighting designer, an architect, a interior designer, we go from concept to design development all the way to final implementation. So AI will have a big impact on that whole workflow. The language models can certainly help in conceptualizing, in ideation, in creating new things. But it's important that we control that and we have the oversight to make sure it remains feasible. The visual generation, so we now are moving into the time-based representation of your concept, whether it's through video or multiple imagery. You surely have heard of tools like Midjourney, and there's many others. I don't claim to be an expert in these tools, but I know they exist and I've played around a bit with it. But it's quite amazing what it can do. And we need to see how it's possible to create that AI assistance in your workflow. I just heard today from a company, quite big company in AI, that have literally taken a week off of all their staff to just do a hackathon about what AI can do for their company. So they basically will stop working for a whole week, get together and then think, okay, how can AI help us? Because the biggest problem that we have today is that most of you may be part of a company, have a practice, you need to work every day, you have deadlines. Where do you find the time to go and figure this all out? So that's a big thing for many people. I'm lucky, I'm about to retire. I have time, I don't have pressures, so I can jump into that and play around with it. And I have to say, it's quite addictive. And I know people that jumped into it, and instead of lesser time, they spend more time till deep in the night playing and trying to understand how it can help. But if you're a busy person within a structured company, you might not just be able to use it like that. There might be company rules on privacy and how you use AI, etc. So it's not just play around and do it. There's still a responsibility towards the client, towards the company in itself, when it comes to responsibility in what you put out there. We have the time-based motion studies, which I mentioned before. I think that's going to play a big role. I think it's going to be quite important to do that. And then we now have also basically had input of a couple of prompts. We can create complete presentations. But then again, you need to check it. You need to make sure that what comes together is something that's ready and suitable to be put into the world. Now, what are these key advantages towards designers in general, those who master AI? Of course, you will have capabilities to persuade your client because you have so many more options. And I have to say, I have a lot of experience, and I have often put things together. And now, using AI, I have to admit that even with my 47 years of experience, AI comes up with things like, I'm thinking, ooh, I didn't think of that, but it makes sense. And I can appreciate some new insights, some new directions, or some new opportunities that I didn't think of. Not that I didn't know them, but I didn't put one and one together and thought, oh, that's something I could use here as well. So you get a lot more that you have to deal with and you can choose from, and which might very much help the way you present to your client. With that, of course, a bigger depth and quality of what you can do. But again, you need to have the human oversight to make sure that you are presenting things that are feasible and realizable. And what many people start to focus on is the removal of the boring tasks, I would say. The drafting, the schedules, all that sort of thing, which we know is repetitive. Sometimes we just open a drawer and do the same thing again. So that's where time can be won to spend more time into designing and creation. I mentioned trust building, which is really important because we are reaching now a stage where people understand that AI will help you, and then you're saying, okay, but why should I still pay the same fees to you if you are using AI to create things? I mean, in the past, we also started to use Google to research and all that, so the use of AI in itself shouldn't be an issue, but you need to be able to create the trust level that you are in that process of designing and creating as the human, with the oversight, with the responsibility, with the emotional control. So it's important to make sure that you do not lose sight of your human importance in building that trust relation so that you can still, hopefully even, charge higher fees to your client. So this is an element that many people are still trying to figure out. How do I introduce AI? Some people openly, transparently say we're using AI. Some people don't. But I think it's obvious that even if you say you don't, not many people will believe you nowadays because everybody, I think, in some way or form is using AI. And of course, you can create a much clearer narrative because AI helps you to really bring structure in your story, create very clear directions, and make it easier for things to understand. But again, with human oversight. So, the question then that I was asking, whether lighting designers or designers in general would be replaced by AI, I'm saying they will not be replaced by AI, but I'm saying that they will be replaced potentially by people who are mastering AI. And I think that's the key takeaway, that if you would not be able to understand AI and master AI, then you might potentially in the future be replaced by somebody who does. That's how I see